As someone who reviews smartphones for a living, I get a lot of questions from people that I know asking which smartphone they should buy. And in 2020, there are a lot of good options. But a smartphone like this, the Nubia Red Magic 5G, really wouldn't be that interesting to most of the people that I know. But it's still one of my favorite devices of this year. One of the reasons why I really enjoy Android as an operating system is because there's really no limitation as to what it can be used for. Now, the Nubia Red Magic 5G isn't technically too far-fetched when comparing it to some of the crazy devices that are out there running the OS, but it is an amazingly absurd smartphone when you hold it up to other traditional devices offered by other manufacturers. As you've probably already noticed, the Red Magic 5G doesn't look like a traditional smartphone. Yes, it is built from glass and metal like pretty much any other device, but Nubia has given the glass on the back of the phone a lot more character than what you see on other devices. Using a variety of different textures and red accent lines, the Red Magic 5G's back cover is prominently depicting an X with the Nubia and Red Magic logos accented with LED backlights, which are customizable with a variety of different lighting schemes. But the main difference here between the Red Magic 5G and other devices comes down to its cooling fan and trigger buttons on the side of the phone. Yes, this phone has a cooling fan and vents, something that you typically see on laptops, not smartphones. And then along the edge of the phone, you get two capacitive triggers, which can be used for gaming, giving you a better experience overall. One thing to point out though is that these extra features do add additional weight to the device. Even though this only has a 6.65-inch display, the Red Magic 5G is a hefty smartphone, weighing in at 218 grams, thanks to its 4,500 mAh battery on the inside. You also get a 3.5mm headphone jack on the top edge of the phone, dual stereo speakers, and also a USB-C charging port. The phone's 6.65-inch AMOLED display with its full HD resolution is a little bit smaller than most other devices within the same category, but its 144Hz refresh rate is definitely class-leading. While the feature is mainly intended for gaming, the high refresh rate is also noticeable throughout the phone's user interface and while using everyday apps. Browsing the web in Chrome is significantly smoother at 144Hz, as is scrolling through your feeds on Instagram and Facebook. Unlike most flagship devices these days, the Red Magic 5G uses a flat display panel. I have to admit that a curved screen does give a phone a sleeker look, but they also add unnecessary glare and introduce false taps to the screen, two issues that the Red Magic 5G simply avoids. The display also gets a few extra bonus points for overall color accuracy, brightness, and great viewing angles, but I was a little bit disappointed to find out that it does not support HDR10. This phone also gets high marks when it comes to its software. While most of Nubia's devices still adhere to the iOS copycat user interface that we've seen from them for so long, the Red Magic phones actually feature software that's more in tune with stock Android than you might expect. The phone comes with absolutely no bloatware, with less than 25 applications pre-installed when you turn the phone on for the first time. And of those 25 applications, most of them come directly from Google. The default launcher on the phone doesn't have a whole lot of customization options, so if you're into making the home screen truly your own and customizing it with custom icon packs, you will need to install a third-party launcher in order to do so. But the phone does have quite a few always-on display customization options, which honestly I truly appreciate because it's not something that most manufacturers give you true control over. That being said, there are a handful of bugs and design decisions that I'm not really a fan of, like only being able to swipe notifications away in one direction or not being able to add multiple app shortcuts to the desktop or multiple folders. Now, since this is a gaming phone, there is a dedicated gaming space which is launched with a physical switch on the edge of the phone. In addition to housing all of your games, this is where you're going to see the controls for all of the hardware in order to give you a better gaming experience. You get quick toggle support for the display's refresh rates, the cooling fan, messaging notifications, and much more. And if you're going to be using the capacitive triggers on the edge of the phone, this is where you're going to customize those features as well. Of course, to make this a desirable smartphone for gamers, you need to have the latest and greatest chipset. And in this case, you get the Snapdragon 865 processor, which is kept extremely cool thanks to that internal cooling fan. You get the option of 8GB or 12GB of LPDDR5 RAM coupled with 128 or 256GB of storage. Combine that hardware with the phone's 144Hz refresh rate display and you have yourself one of the best pieces of hardware for mobile gaming ever built. The experience that the Red Magic 5G delivers is second to none, and the capacitive triggers on the side of the phone make games like Call of Duty Mobile, Fortnite, and even PUBG even more enjoyable, and may even give you a little bit of an edge over the competition. I can't tell you how many times that I've died in Call of Duty Mobile simply because I missed the trigger button on the display by a fraction of a millimeter. Needless to say, missing a capacitive trigger on the side of the phone is a lot harder to do, especially if you're someone who plays first-person shooters with a controller. The model I was sent only had 8 gigabytes of RAM, but honestly, that was more than enough for keeping up with multitasking and running applications in the background and switching between apps and games to your heart's content. But if 8 gigabytes of RAM simply isn't enough for you, there's always the 12 gigabyte model as well. But honestly, I don't know how much better the experience can actually get. This phone can literally handle anything that you throw at it, and honestly, it has enough performance headroom to be at the top of its game for the next 3 to 4 years. Unfortunately, when a smartphone is built specifically for one task, it's going to suffer in a few other areas, and that main one that stands out the most is its cameras. The main camera's 64 megapixel Sony IMX-X686 sensor is actually really good, but Nubia has a lot of work to do when it comes to image processing. If you don't take a lot of pictures with your smartphone or simply haven't used a high-end device over the last couple of years, you're really not going to hate the results here, but if you want to take really good shots, you might want to look elsewhere. The sharpness, dynamic range, and color balance simply aren't anywhere near where they should be. The 8 megapixel wide-angle camera is pretty decent for such a low-resolution sensor, but I'm still confused as to why Nubia would want to include a macro camera on the back of the phone. The results that you get from the 2 megapixel macro camera are honestly laughable since it doesn't include an autofocus lens. This forces you to move the phone in order to get the focus just right. The 8 megapixel front-facing camera is capable of taking some decent pictures once you turn off all of the beauty mode settings, but don't bother pulling the phone out to take a selfie in low-light situations, since the images that it captures during those times are a smudgy mess, compared to low-light selfies that you typically get from other smartphones in the $300 category. For a smartphone with a 4,500 mAh battery, the Nubia Red Magic 5G really doesn't have that great battery life. If you're using the phone for gaming, expect about 5.5 hours of continual gameplay with the refresh rate set to 144 Hz and the fan being continually on. Or you can get about 13 hours of video playback, which honestly means you'll be able to get through a whole day, but don't think you'll be able to get through a day and a half on a single charge. The device doesn't support wireless charging, but it does offer 55-watt fast charging if you bring your own charger. The one that comes in the box is only 18 watts, which can deliver roughly a 50% charge in 40 minutes. The Nubia Red Magic 5G is far from being a perfect everyday smartphone. There are devices out there with better cameras, software, and battery life, but there are honestly few devices that actually deliver on everything that they promise. The Red Magic 5G is a gaming-first smartphone that promises to deliver best-in-class performance, and that's exactly what it does. The fact that this phone only cost $579 for the base model makes it an incredible steal, and honestly, as I said at the very beginning, one of my favorite devices of 2020. If mobile gaming is your thing and you really don't want to spend $1,000 on a flagship tier smartphone in 2020, the Nubia Red Magic 5G is definitely the way to go.